Hello, this is the section 6.5a lesson. Now, this lesson is really a continuation of section 6.5 where we talked about division of fractions. In this lesson we're going to talk about how do we determine if a problem is solved by division or multiplication. Sometimes with word problems, especially those involving fractions, it's difficult to determine what arithmetic we should use to solve the problem. And so in this section we're going to talk about a couple of really simple techniques for determining is a problem solved by division or multiplication. So here's a couple of general guidelines or steps that we can use to determine whether a problem is solved with multiplication or division. So first step is to just try to estimate the solution using some basic reasoning. So just take a step back and look at the problem. Maybe ask yourself, should the answer be greater than 1? Should it be less than 1? Just maybe what might be a reasonable solution to this problem. And that might give you some indications as to whether the problem is solved by multiplication or division. But then the second step is to draw a picture to justify whether it's a multiplication or division problem. And so the first step we get a clue, and then the second step we justify that solution technique. So let's look at this problem to illustrate these steps. So Anita had half a bag of fertilizer left. She then used 3/4 of what was left. How much of a bag of fertilizer did Anita use? Okay. So we see we start off with a half a bag of fertilizer, and then we use 3/4 of what was left. Now this keyword here, of, is a keyword indicating multiplying. And so that's an indication that maybe we should multiply. Specifically, maybe we should multiply a half times 3/4. Well, first of all, let's take a step back and think if that would make sense. Or in other words, let's get a rough estimate of what the solution should be. So the question is, how much of a bag did she actually use? Well, if she started off with half of a bag, and then she used 3/4, well, 3/4 is smaller than 1, so that means we didn't even use this full bag. And so that means our answer should be less than a half. Should be definitely less than 1. It should be less than a half because that's what we started with, and then we used less than all of that. So the answer should be less than a half. And so we think it's multiplication, so let's just draw a quick picture to justify that it really is multiplication. So let's start off by drawing a picture of our half of a bag. And so this box here represents our whole, which is equal to a bag of fertilizer. And it says we start off with half of a bag. So we'll cut that in 2 pieces. We'll shade one of those pieces. So there's the half a bag that we started with. But then the problem says that we use 3/4 of what we had there. So that means we're going to take this 3/4, or take this half of a bag, and we're going to cut this into 4 pieces. And then we're going to select 3 of those pieces. So maybe we'll do 1, 2, 3. And so there's the 3 pieces that we're going to use. Now the question is just what fraction of a bag is this? Well, we can answer that pictorially by extending those lines on up. And so what we see from our picture is that we did something with 3/4 of the 1/2. And so our picture justifies that this problem is solved by 3/4 times 1/2. Because again, from our picture we see that we did something with 3/4 of that 1/2. And so now we can do this arithmetic, and so this is 3/8 of a bag. And from our picture we can see that that is indeed the answer, because in the end we used 3 pieces, and our whole bag was divided up into 8 pieces, and so 3/8 of a bag. Okay. So there we go. This keyword here, of, indicated we should multiply. Our picture justifies that this really is a multiplication problem, and the arithmetic here was the easiest part of it, but the hard part was determining what operation we needed to do. Now our next problem says that it takes an assembly line a half hour to produce enough boxes of toys to fill a truck 2/3 full. At that rate, how long does it take the assembly line to produce enough boxes of toys to fill the truck completely full? Okay. So first of all, let's try to estimate our answer. And so we spent a half of an hour to fill the truck 2/3 full. So in a half hour we didn't even fill it completely full. The question is how much time would it take to fill the truck completely full? Well, if it took a half hour to fill it 2/3 full, it's going to have to take more than a half of an hour to fill it completely full. So our answer should be greater than a half, right? The answer should be greater than a half. So there's a very rough estimate of our answer. Now it needs to be greater than a half. Now, if we think that this is a multiplication problem, we might try taking 1/2 times 1/3, or excuse me, 2/3. And if we do that arithmetic, right, those 2's cancel, and so we get 1/3. Well, 1/3 is less than 1/2, and that answer doesn't agree with our estimate up here. So this answer doesn't make sense, which means that multiplying doesn't make sense. So it's not a multiplication problem. That indicates it's maybe a division problem. So let's start over with a new drawing here and try to figure out how to solve this using division. Is it 1/2 divided by 2/3, or is it 2/3 divided by 1/2? Just what is it? It's hard to tell just by looking at the problem, so we need to draw a picture to try to figure out what the answer is. Now there's lots of different different pictures for division problems that we could draw, and we could do an educated guess and check. But let's just kind of reason through this a little bit. So we've got a truck here. We could think of a truck as like a group of toys, and so that indicates that that maybe in our picture we should put our number of trucks at the bottom representing a number of groups, and maybe our hours at the top. So let's try this. Let's put our half hour at the top, and then that half hour we're going to fill 2/3 of a truck. And so, you know, some of that hour is going to go to fill like maybe one truck, and then some more hours are going to go to fill more trucks, and overall we're going to fill a total of 2/3 of a truck. And so we'll put our question mark here. So our problem says that, or our picture says that a half of an hour went to fill a total of 2/3 of a truck. How many hours are going to fill one truck completely full? Well, that's exactly what we want. We want to know the total number of hours that go into one full truck. And so from our problem we see that this, or from our picture we see that this is a how many items in a group type of division problem. And specifically we would solve this by taking 1/2 and dividing by 2/3, which we can calculate by taking 1/2 times 3/2. And so now we do this arithmetic. This would be 3/4, and there's our answer, 3/4 of an hour. Now notice that this answer is indeed greater than a half, and so that agrees with our rough estimate of the solution. And so there we go. Our picture justifies that this really is a division problem where we take 1/2 divided by 2/3. So that's it for this lesson. There is no reading assignment before next class.